Oh, hello. Come on in. So, risotto. It's an essential in any kitchen. In fact, it is an Italian staple. And after this episode, you will learn how to make said staple that will be worthy on the menu of any Italian restaurant. In fact, I bet you your local restaurant doesn't have a risotto on the menu. Just chicken parm or veal parm or eggplant parm. The list goes parmesan and on and on. So once you're all prepped, just give 20 minutes of your life to this risotto and you will have a dish worth talking about. Now get out of my house. Both of you. For risotto, I like to use carnaroli rice from Italy. It can be hard to find, but you can also use arborio rice, which is available in almost any megamart. If you see carnaroli, snag it while you can. It really results in the creamiest texture for a risotto. Now the risotto I'm gonna make is a basic risotto topped with a mushroom ragu. But you'll find that risotto is just a vehicle. You can top it with braised short ribs or oxtails, or you can fold in a puree of asparagus or squash, or mix in an array of spring vegetables or summer vegetables. Once you get the technique down, you can become creative. And that's what risotto is all about. So to start the risotto, we're going to be sauteing an onion and then mixing in the rice, adding some wine, and then some stock. Very common for any risotto recipe you'll see. So we're gonna actually try to finely mince this onion about the same size as the grains of rice. So when you have your onion here, cut it in half lengthwise down the root. Start with half. We'll probably only need about half of this. And we wanna be, so you wanna actually just cut down the side using your fingers as a guide. And then we'll cut down here. There you go. Whoo! Start to cry a little bit. Oh wow, it's like I'm watching When Harry Met Sally for the first time. Oh, or Sleepless in Seattle. All great films. So we're gonna use probably about a few tablespoons of this. So now, cut off a generous knob of butter. We want a few tablespoons here. All right. All right, so we'll let that butter melt down. And I also have here vegetable stock, which is at a simmer on the stove. For risotto, you can use almost any stock. Like we made in our previous episode about chicken stock, if that's all you had, use chicken stock, especially if your risotto is meat-based. If it's a vegetarian stock, you can use vegetable stock. And if you don't have any stock on hand, promise me, and I mean this really, promise me that you will not use boxed or canned stock. In the comment section, I want to see that. I promise, Michael. I promise you. If you don't have stock, just use water. So we're melting down that butter, and we're gonna add this onion in here. Now, we don't want to caramelize this onion. We just want to sweat it down. And what we mean by that is adding just enough heat to extract some of that moisture out of the onion. When we're taking out that water content, we're taking out the harshness of it and we're enhancing that sweetness of the onion. When you take it too far and you start to brown or caramelize the onion, then you start to almost burn the natural sugars in that onion. And that's gonna overpower the risotto. So we're just gonna let this sweat down and soften. And when our onions soften here, we can add the rice. And we just wanna toast the rice here. Here we go. Yeah. And we'll just coat the rice in that butter. So we're just toasting the rice. We don't want to brown the rice. So after just a few minutes of stirring, we're going to add in our wine. That's about a cup of wine. When it comes to cooking with wine, no, you don't have to get the most expensive bottle, but I also don't recommend buying the cheapest bottle of wine. Use something that you would cook with. It's that simple. Even though the alcohol does cook out, you still get the flavor profiles of that wine. So a good rule of thumb is use a wine that you plan on drinking with that night. In a risotto, I would not use a red wine. We want that sweet tardiness that comes out of that white wine to come through and kind of balance out the richness of the risotto. A red wine will first of all color the risotto, which some people like, but it's also a little bit more bitter and rich and full of body for a risotto, I think. So we're just gonna let this come to a boil, and we're gonna reduce that wine down almost to a syrup to coat the rice. And we're gonna add our stock once the rice looks almost dry again, like it did when we first put it in. We wanna see those individual grains of rice again. A great thing about this risotto technique, which I'm gonna show you, is we're actually going to parboil the rice, or blanch it. And then what we're gonna do is we can actually cool that down in the refrigerator for up to a day. So this is kind of a no-hassle risotto. And then we finish it at the last minute. So instead of, let's say you have a dinner party and you're gonna be spending 20, 30 minutes in front of the stove while your guests are here, you don't have to do that. So you can half cook the rice, put it in the refrigerator, and at the last minute, finish it. And that's what I think is great about this risotto recipe. But if you also wanted to just finish it right then and there, that's completely fine to do too. So right now, most of the alcohol is cooked out now, and you can see the risotto's almost starting to get that creamy consistency. And we're just starting the cooking process right now. So you smell it, and that alcohol flavor is starting to go away. And you can start to see that the individual rice grains are showing up again. We'll let this cook out for just a few more seconds. So what is different about this risotto, since we're actually parboiling the rice first, we're gonna add the stock all at once, parboil it, drain it, and then when we finish the risotto, we'll do it the more authentic, traditional way, which is adding a little bit of stock at a time, stirring it until it evaporates, adding some more, and then we'll have that really creamy texture that you get from a risotto. All right, so now I'm gonna add the stock. So I have here vegetable stock. I don't think I wanna overpower the risotto with a meat-based stock, so I'm gonna add this vegetable stock, and here we'll actually add this whole thing of it. There you go. Stir that in. We'll bring this to a boil. And when that comes to a boil, we'll cook for 4 minutes, exactly. So our risotto rice has been blanching or par cooking the last 4 minutes. And we're actually gonna drain this now. So I have fine mesh strainer. You can always use a colander lined with cheesecloth whenever it comes into straining anything, stock or sauces, or in this case a risotto. So, and then we'll bring this, we'll let this drain right in there. So this rice is still pretty raw. So we'll just let that cool down in the refrigerator. I was going to make a mushroom ragu, but I decided to make sauteed mushrooms reduced with chicken stock, shallots, and garlic. So here's how to make that. Trim and clean mushrooms, cut into equal sized pieces. Heat canola oil over high heat. Add the mushrooms and a pinch of salt. Brown, tossing often. Mince shallots, garlic, and thyme. Reduce the heat and add butter. Add a little chicken stock, frozen cube, remember these. Season with a little champagne vinegar. Reduce the liquid until almost evaporated. Back to the risotto. So it's later in the day and I'm ready to cook it. So now all we have to do is finish it. The rice is still very, very al dente. So we'll just warm this back up in the pan. Still warming up, and now here's where the traditional risotto technique happens. We're going to add our vegetable stock, because remember this is a vegetable-based risotto, a ladle full, or a ladle or two at a time. We just want to barely cover the rice. There we go. I'll just give that a nice little stir. Now you should be stirring often, but it's okay if you take a step back for a few seconds. So 10 minutes have gone by. I've been adding a ladle full of stock each time and stirring it, and you'll see that it's really gotten to more of this creamy consistency. And that's not from stirring constantly, it's just from, well, the carnaroli rice has a lot of starch in it. And the way that we're cooking it by adding it a ladle full at a time and incorporating it slowly is pulling out that starch. So it's really a myth that you have to keep stirring for 20 minutes straight. That's not how the risotto gets creamy. Let's give it another taste. I think that's perfect. We'll just let any of that excess moisture evaporate off. All right, so to finish our risotto, I'm actually gonna bring this over here. Whenever you're adding your fat or your cheese, you don't want that on the heat because the heat will cause it to split. So right here I have some butter, and we want a few tablespoons of this. There we go. And we'll just beat that in there. Kind of stir that in as vigorously as you can. Okay, so now we're gonna add our mascarpone cheese. Mascarpone cheese is an Italian cream cheese. It's made from cream. It's delicious. If you can't get this, I definitely recommend, add a nice generous amount of this. I definitely recommend maybe cream. Right now I think that's good. And we'll add our Parmesan cheese here. Give it a few handfuls. This is gonna thicken up the risotto. And once again, you should do this to taste. And then I'll even give it another little final season. Salt. I decided that I'm gonna fold in my mushrooms. I was cooking them and I'm like, you know what? I really want these to shine in the risotto. They were so delicious. I'm like, I'm gonna fold these in here. So these are still warm. I'm just adding those into the risotto here. Beautiful risotto, fit for a king. Absolutely delicious. Absolutely delicious. So I want you to hit the like button and the subscribe button while I keep eating this risotto. And I'll wait. I'll eat it. This is delicious.